All right, we're in video number 2 in our introduction to the thesis statement. Again, I want to reiterate that it is crucial that you understand what a thesis statement is, so please pay attention to this video. If you master this skill, the rest of the class is going to be really easy. If you don't master it, this is going to be a very, very difficult course. In fact, you won't be able to pass it until you do master this skill. To begin with, we need to understand why a thesis statement has to have an argument in it. There must be an argument. Otherwise, there is no essay to write. It's just a factual statement. So let's take a look at some examples to really develop this idea out. If you walk into a store and ask about a product, as long as all you're getting is specs, specifications, that's information. The minute you hear the word better or best or worse or worst, then it's an argument, okay? So when you go to buy something, you're usually asking for if the product is any good. That's asking for an argument, i.e., is this thing better than something else that I could be spending my money on, okay? PS5 versus Xbox, something like that, okay? If you're taking a class and your instructor asks you to come up with causes for an event, which is typical in a lot of classes, the minute you specify a cause, you have an argument. If you say, if you're asked, what is the most important event of 2020? Your obvious answer might be, hey, COVID. But someone else might argue, well, what about the fires in Australia? Or what about Brexit? Or what about events in the former Soviet republics and things like that? Those might all be very important also. Okay, it all depends on where you're coming from as to what's the most important event of the year. Probably COVID, but again, it's open to interpretation. And therefore, the minute you specify a cause, you actually are arguing something. On a lighter note, you're dating someone and you're trying to make plans for going out, obviously post-COVID. If you have different ideas from your partner, it's an argument, okay? Because obviously you're going to be saying, hey, I want to do this, and the other person is going to say, hey, I want to do this, and it's all essentially who gets to convince the other person, okay? Finally, your doctor suggests doing more exercise. Guess what? That's an argument. You could be doing other things. You know, maybe quality of life relies on you not doing more exercise. Who knows? But it's an argument, okay? So even in the professions, there's an argument being provided, okay? All right, so what has to be there in the argument? Well, obviously the argument. If someone can't disagree with what you are saying, it's not an argument. So please review your thesis statements. If someone cannot disagree with what you are saying, you don't have an essay. Now, for your first paper, you're going to be writing about your favorite food. And obviously that doesn't really lend itself to a disagreement because I would have to be saying basically that you don't know what your own favorite food is. However, that's a unique situation because it's a personal item, okay? So don't get thrown off by that. But for the rest of the semester, it definitely works. If someone can't disagree with what you're saying, it's not an argument. So if I say Disneyland is located in Anaheim, California, that's not an argument. Guess what? It is. It either is or it isn't. And it's a simple lookup to find out whether it is. Okay, so that's not an argument. If on the other hand, I say Magic Mountain is better than Disneyland, well, I'm pretty sure that some of the people who are watching this video right now are getting upset. So obviously that is an argument, okay? So right there is the key to step 1 of this whole process. You need to have an argument. Again, sorry to keep repeating that same point over and over again, but it's crucial. However, an argument is not enough by itself. The argument has to be limited in some way. If I say Magic Mountain is better than Disneyland and leave it at that, then I can talk about a million different things, all of which I'll probably cover in the most bare bones way possible and not have enough to talk about. If, on the other hand, I tell you that Magic Mountain is better than Disneyland just because of its funnel cakes, which sounds incredibly limited, that actually will work. All we're going to discuss are the funnel cakes. And that's enough for a whole paper. I can talk about the ritual of getting the funnel cake, the toppings available, and how there is no real equivalent at Disneyland. What am I talking about? For those of you who've been to Magic Mountain, you know that all day long you can go into the shop and buy yourself a funnel cake without an issue. But that last hour that the park is open, there's always a line to get the funnel cakes. It is a ritual that people go through at the end of the day at Magic Mountain. There's no equivalent ritual at Disneyland. There's wonderful food at Disneyland, don't get me wrong, but it's not quite the same way. And I can actually go into great detail. Look at all the things I can talk about. I can talk in great detail about the toppings. I can go into real detail about the whole idea of the ritual, the fact that, again, if you grew up in Santa Clarita and your parents grew up in Santa Clarita, there's a better than even chance that they were doing the same thing you're doing now when you go to the park. Okay, and no, this is not advertising for Magic Mountain, and I am not being sponsored by them, but I'm open to being sponsored by them if they want to contact me. Anyway, you can see how the limitation of the argument actually helps you write a better paper. You're not writing a novel, you're not writing a book, you're writing a paper of, a few pages. So you want to make sure that you have a topic that's limited enough for you to go into detail about it. So make sure that red part of it is there. Does it always have to have the word because? No. But surprisingly, you'll find it used a lot. Again, I would never tell you that you must have a because there, but seeing it shouldn't be a bad sign. Okay? Finally, what happens if you don't limit the argument? Okay, well, we kind of covered that already, but let's go over it. Magic Mountain is better than Disneyland. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. And what I'm going to end up with is something that is incredibly broad, incredibly open-ended, and lacks any real detail. So I can talk about how the rides are amazing. What rides am I going to talk about? There's a million different rides. And what will probably end up happening is because I don't have that strong central direction of just wanting to talk about the funnel cakes, I'm going to be saying, oh yeah, they have Goliath. Oh, and they have Superman. And while you're at it, they have a little train for kids. Yay. It's not enough detail. My next paragraph, they have great snacks. Okay, what does that mean? Takis, where am I going? Okay, maybe I can mention my funnel cakes here, but I don't know why I'm talking about the funnel cakes, so I'm going to be lacking on the details. And then finally, hey, parking is really simple. Okay, it sounds good, but this is not what you want to be doing. Okay, this is not where you want to go with this. It's too limited. Okay, so you definitely need to develop it more. Let's look at the other version of this. Magic Mountain is better than Disneyland because of the rides, snacks, and parking. And that's probably what you've been taught before. And it works. Again, it's a list. I've talked about that in the first video in this series. But it is not a good way of setting this up because it sets up exactly what you see below. This very, very broad, very weak kind of blah paper. Okay? Lists have their place. If you are writing an exam, it'll work. If you are just out of ideas, it'll get you through. But it is not the strongest way of limiting your argument. So Magic Mountain is better than Disneyland because of the ride, snacks, and parking. First of all, ride, snacks, and parking should never be in the same paper together. They just don't fit together. And that's a very typical problem for list type thesis statements. So don't go there. Okay? So take the quiz, see how you do, ask questions about this, make sure you master this. Contact me if you have any questions. I'll be happy to go over it with you some more. Okay?